guys, welcome back. My name is Sal. I'm your systems architect, systems here, and IT professional, business owner, entrepreneur, and philanthropist. I've been in the IT field for a long time. Um, so I've been dealing with a lot of companies, and each company I bring a vast variety of experience in different areas, especially when you're coming down to their assets and their device management systems, right? So designing something like this is very important, especially when we're managing it. And it's not just designing; it's not just grabbing a laptop, sitting on a desk, and plugging it into a router or switch. But it's also the heart that you put into it, and the knowledge and the prerequisites and the background behind it. So having a little bit of ingenuity and common sense, like I spoke to you guys before, when we did talk about the syspacking, the Hyper-V, and the different generations and whatnot, and the different versions of Office Windows Server 2003. So when we were talking about that again, it involved in the IA architectures. So even to know the IAs, the architecture values, or the x86, which is your 32-bit systems, right? So knowing that and how to design one is very important, especially if it's in your on-premises environment, sort of like here, right? Or it's in the cloud, somewhere in the cloud, and hosted hosted by a company and whatnot. So in this data flow that I've created a data flow here. In different phases. I've created them. So when we create these different data flows, I've created multiple, but in this scenario, I've created four machines and a template machine that runs. That's just my sysprep machine. There's no Intune, just a basic. So we need to create switches, right? It needs some sort of network. So we have our network cards here, and that sort of needs the network card, right? And in Hyper-V, there's three types of switches. Yes, there's three types of switches. Not the physical switch like the Cisco, Freecom, uh, Fortinet, uh, HP. Not those kind of switches, but there's there's three types of switches. And by default, when you install a hypervisor, we're creating an external switch. But there's not just an external switch. You're also creating different. Um, what was it for you guys? Give you a better idea of the picture here. Okay, so here's a picture that I had last time, right? So if I'm drawing switches, right? We have our physical switch. So imagine this is your physical switch. We have our physical switches here, right? We have a physical switch, and all these machines are connected to that, right? So, so the switch I'm talking about is the virtual switch within these hypervisors that we create. With me? So we're creating these three virtual, uh, well, three hypervisors. We're gonna have by default we're gonna have that external virtual switch created. So by default, right, we're gonna have an external V switch created. Right? And we're talking about all three. So all three are gonna have that for you. So this is by default, right? And I'll show you what that means get to get to that point. So you'll kind of see what I mean by that. Especially in this data flow and how we're creating these employees, right? So again, we're creating a type we have a type hypervisor to environment, and we're creating a DC. We have a DC, so I have my DC. I'll show you DC. And again, I'm not creating, and I'll create three machines, three different hypervisors, right? So in this case, I'm only going to show you one for now, just to swing it. But I do provide full courses. Just email me or send me a message on WhatsApp. We'll talk. I also do group. So in this case, our environment has a domain, right? We have a domain. We have a domain controller with a connection and a disk, and a hard disk, right? So we have a hard disk, right? We also have the different applications like labs and other applications that are important, especially in the different projects that we do. So, so I built computers, right? I have my different file shares. I have my different secondary sites, right? And I also have a domain controller. Now, in a test environment, I'm just going to create one. But in a real environment, we're going to have two, whatever. We're just going to have different root and replica. And I think I explained this in one of my things. So we have a root domain controller, which is my root domain controller. Plus, we're going to have a replica DC, and that's going to have the same um, roles that I need, and it's going to be highly available, right? But in our instance, it's just a test. So, I'm hoping that there's no comments saying, "Oh, why don't you have two DCs for?" Well, I'm not. It's not a WAN environment. I don't have any, domains in New York or domains in Montreal or domains in London. This is just a basic two machine, two type machine again, right? In a hypervisor two environment, right? And I'm going to build my two machines within my Hyper-V management. Now, these switches, going back to the switches, right? So I have my switches that are external V switches. They're called external V switches. And by default, this is what they're called. They're called external virtual switch. And I'll show you what that all means. And again, this is all going to be external virtual switch, right? So this is sort of like, so in this hypervisor too, external virtual switch or V switch, right? It doesn't matter how it's called. It doesn't matter what it's called. It's just we attach within these um, three types of switches. We create our machine, and within our machine, or this one machine, for example, because I'm just going to work on this one, right? That's kind of the gist over time. So I'm going to grab this machine here. So in this machine here, I'm going to create that hypervisor, and it's going to host my two virtual machines. Right? I'm going to have my two virtual machines on top of my hypervisor, right? So this is one machine, and this is two machines, right? So, so again, this is what I'm going to do. This is what we're going to do for in this instance here. But again, we have we're going to create these three types, and I'm going to show you the three types. And then what we'll do is in order to install the Hyper-V role, I'm not going to show you how to do that. I've showed it in other courses, right? We're going to play with the memory and the hardware disk that we have. We need to be mindful in how in an IT industry they're mainstream hypervisors, right? Sort of like your VMware Hypervisor One, which is your ESXi model. Then there's your VMware. Then there's your Hypervisor Two, which is our Workstation Pro in my instance, right? So this is where we're using our Workstation Pro. So this is Workstation Pro, right? And again, at any time, if it doesn't make sense, please send me a message. Add me to my WhatsApp group, and I can answer all your questions. Right? So just started this group, it's brand new, just for this instance only. If you ask why it took me so long, no time. I felt like doing this. I felt like sharing my knowledge with the people that help. So again, we have our external switch, right? Our external switch, and then that external switch, Hyper-V external switch, that would be connected um, to our server here externally, right? So I'm going to show you with a blue cable. So if I get my blue cable, right, and we say this is our NIC card. I'm going to draw a card here. This is my NIC card. So if that's my NIC card, let me grab my cable. I want my cable. Let's say my cable is so we'll use blue for data, white for voice, red for management, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the different types of cables that I used to use in designing servers. And MBS, right? Solutions. So in terms of our network is connected to the virtual switch, and then our virtual switch in turn connects to the network card of machines. Hmm. How does it connect? It needs a network card. So yes, it does connect. It's something that's called a virtual. Uh, so it has something that's called a virtual network card. Network card. Okay. So that virtual network card is called a VNIC. What does that mean? It's a virtual network interface card. VNIC. So that's our VNICs, right? And now virtual machines, yeah, they have disks as well too. So they do have disks, right? These disks are called V disks, which which in turn will sit on on top of the lens. So they sit on top of the lens. They sit on top of the lens, right? It doesn't matter what lung it sits on, but it sits on top of the lung, right? And with the virtual cable, we call it. So the hard drive will sit on top of a lung. Okay, with me? So inside our three types of switches again, we are going to create three different types. External virtual switch, another one. I'll show you how to do that, and I'll show you how to create an internal virtual switch, and I'll show you how to create a private virtual switch. So pretty easy, no? So let's do that. Let's go ahead. I spoke about generations already, so we're not gonna be talking about the different generations, but just know the the generations do support a lot of the advanced features, right? So they just can't be migrated anything less than 2008 hypervisors. So and our generation one, yeah, they're ready for backward compatibility and ready for 2008 Windows servers where those VMs can be migrated to. Again, the generation one also support 8 architectures, which is a 32-bit architecture, right? And we also have our generation two, which supports more than 2 terabyte drive, right? So keep that in the back of your mind, right? Like for example, know the different types of hypervisors, like Workstation Pro, it is a type 2. And when we talk about hypervisors is just the role that's installed on top of the operating system, right? So we need to understand that. And our hypervisors are vast, right? So we have many hypervisors, and I know Microsoft itself, Hyper-V is both a hypervisor one and a hypervisor two inside, right? So that's something that some good advice for you guys to know. And then we also have our Citrix, which is our Zen server. So for people who are working on Citrix, you know, hypervisor one tool for that would be our Zen server, right? And then Red Hat, if you're using Red Hat in your environments, or SUSE, those are called KVM. That's that. Let's switch that on. So in this instance, you know, we're looking at our three virtual switches, and we need to know especially when we have our virtual environments. So I'm going to be creating three inside here. There's going to be three diamonds in here. So there's three virtual switches. Sorry. It's going to be our three virtual switches. I don't care where they are placed in here. I'm just showing you as a reference guide. That's just a reference guide. You guys need to create this on your own terms, right? So, hence, here's my machine. Do it, install it, run it, and play with it. So, in this case, we're going to create we're going to be creating a virtual switch manager. So, as you can see, here's our virtual switch manager. And by default, I created this. I'm actually this. Right. And you'll know that when I do remove a switch, there's a strike through going through. That means that it's removed. Just be aware and cautious before you remove it, and know why you're removing it, right? So in this case, I have a virtual switch, and I'm going to be external. Well, I'm going to be Sal's virtual switch, right? External virtual switch, right? EXT virtual switch, and I'm gonna call it 01. And then again, I don't care what you call it. You guys can call it eight. You guys can call it one call it Clifford. You can call it your nickname, whatever your pet's name. Call it whatever you want at this point, and that's what it's going to be. So we want this to connect to our physical network card. Right? So as I showed in the diagram, in my diagram here, I showed that my physical. Sure, this is a local or physical NIC card, uh, which sort of stands for Ethernet 0, right? Right? So our physical or local NIC card, Ethernet 0, is connected with the blue cable, right, to our virtual switch. And in this case, we renamed it to Sal's, or your first name, external virtual switch, right? So if you have another Sal who's watching, call it, Sal, uh, and by your last name, and you can call it whatever you want. It doesn't matter. Just make sure it's not the same as mine. You know, I don't want to see. And if you are going to do that, just, have a little bit more sense and show us what you can do here. Um, so in terms of my switches, one's going to be internal, right? I.e., right? Internal, internal V switch, IVS, right? And this is going to be our PVS, which is our private virtual switch, right? Right. And again, these will be connected with a virtual blue cable, right? And again, they can create it internally between the virtual NICs or through a private network, right? So we're just going to create them. I'll show you how to create them, and we'll go from there. So in this case, I've created my external, right? I have two network cards. I'm going to use the first one for now, and I'm going to VLAN IP. I don't have a VMNet network in this instance. If you do use 92, 93, 94, whatever you want to use, you can enable the virtual LAN identifications for that management operation system. And again, those identifiers are based um, on your requirements and why you're using it. So I've gone ahead and this is for test environment. Again, if there's another cell doing this, please put your first name and last name. Did it. Snapshot time. Okay, so today is the 8th of October. 8th, right? So we know that we did it today. Again, yours is a little bit different. So, if you do taking your snapshots, make sure you take your time and dates as well too. So we know the time and dates and your first name and last name or whatever you want to call it on there, right? So I'm going to hit apply, right? And again, this is just applying network changes. It's just saying the pending changes may disrupt the network connectivity, may lose its network connectivity while the changes are applied. We're just gonna say, do you want to continue? Yes, obviously, and that's gonna apply the changes there. So in my hypervisor one, I've now created default, default external virtual network. So I'm also going to show you guys how to create an internal. So let's do that. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to apply. Oh, sorry. I'm going to create virtual, and virtual, and internal. Right. I'm going to create that virtual switch. And then I'm going to call this cells switch. Right. And then we said we're going to call it, and again, this is in Canada, US, right? If we're looking at the Canadian side, so again, this could be a Canadian data for data residency, could be Canadian, right? Canada, and then I'm going to put it again. Okay, so this is my internal V switch. I don't care how you spell it. If you add capitals or not, it all depends on how you want. You can keep it as uniform as you want. This is more of a trading session here. So we're going to connect it using the internal switch. We're not using the VLAN IDs like 92, 93, 94, or whatever, 100, 200, 300, whatever you want. Again, virtual LAN IDs only work within the switch. So just to kind of show you guys a little bit about VLANs. VLANs here. I'm not sure if I showed you guys, but let's open up the web browser and look for a switch. So we're going to look for a Cisco switch. What switch it is, but as long as it's got a good picture of it, and it's got the ports that I need. What can I use this one here, the white one? The back, maybe the back side, so do that too. So let's use this one. This one is the Cisco switch. This will be Meraki if you want. Meraki, that's like the Meraki. Let's get the Meraki switch. This one's about 1,500, 15,000. No, this is a best. Need a Meraki switch. So let's use this one. I've seen it before. So you'll see how it's you'll see how it's a layer 3 with optional MDA. You know, we're gonna have to do a research, especially when you're buying these specific things and what layers you want to use it for. Again, that's totally up to design, talk or work with your network team, especially me. I would work with your network team to get some information of what I need and when I need to purchase it, right? So in this case, you know, we went to the market and we purchased them. So we purchased the M5355 that. Okay, and this is a switch. And if we go back to our picture here, I'm going to again post it here. And talk about that virtual local area network. So in this VLAN here, this network again, it looks like it's just an 8-port here, and then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 24-port switch where they divided it into 2 sections. So if we're talking about VLAN, right, and we have, like, for example, we have multiple machines. Let's say, for example, about thousands and thousands and thousands of machines, over 10, 30, 40,000, or even 5,000 or 6,000 machines, right? We need to connect with our blue cable. We need to connect with our blue cable. We need to connect to a port. So we connect to that port and make sure the link light is up. So in this case, we're going to put it over here now because we segregate the administration of this switch. And again, it all depends on how it works and how it doesn't work. And again, like if we look at my drawing here, thinking the data center, in this case, you know, our data centers are basically, you know, racks, right? Tall racks or NBF racks, 1 or 2 racks or 3 racks together in a server room, you know, with holding our IIS servers or web servers or domain controllers or Hyper-Vs, whatever you want it to hold, right? And it's got rows and rows upon this, right? And it's got the patch panel, it's got the paneling, it's got the switching, it's got the SAN solution, got the server boxes on the floor, right? It can have a server machine there with a monitor, and that monitor is where we can log into our machines and do the necessary work that we do, especially when we're troubleshooting. Right? It all depends on where you are, right? And how your infrastructure is, right? So if I were to take this, like this rack, and kind of show you what the rack would look like, you know, it could be even just a box that's hanging up there, and in that box, you know, it's encased with a NEMA encased. So you got your different NEMA ratings for your different rack enclosures and the different types of racks that you want to use it for and what you're needing it for and what those standards are, right? So again, it depends on the infrastructure, right? Just to kind of get a better idea. So this is probably going to be encased in one of the NEMA racks, right? The NEMA based racks, right? And then our uh, cables are going from point A to point B in an office, right? So, for example, this is basically an office one, right? It's going to be our office one, and this is going to be our office two, right? So we're segregating the administration of VLANs this way, right? So in this pocket here, let's call this pocket A, right? Or pocket B, right? Right? Pocket A and VLAN A. So then VLAN B. Right? So this is our VLAN B, VLAN B, right? So if we're looking at what a VLAN is, it's just a segregation, right? So this VLAN A cannot, right? So these machines can talk to each other. This one can talk to each other with this one. This one can talk to this one. As long as they're in that same VLAN, right? In that same area. But if this machine wants to talk to this machine, it says, nope, I can't talk to you because our VLANs are crossed. Our VLANs are crossed. I don't know who you are and what you are. In order for me to understand, I'm going to say, okay, B, let's demote you to A, to our A VLAN, right? Our A VLAN, right? So now that's part of our A VLAN. And then our cable, so this is our cable here, okay? So our cable here, right? So our cable here will move out to here, and the machine moves here. Now, this machine is in another department, but it's part of the same VLAN. You understand? So again, making sure that you have your different VLANs set up in an environment is very crucial, especially when you're doing that. But again, it's up to your company and what your company prefers. So this is where we would have to enable that, right? And then specify the adapters. So in our case, our machine is on VLAN 8 for now. So we have internet. And I also gave it for no particular reason, I just gave it a specific number, right? And then that will have IPs if I you know, what class it's in or what division it's from, what Ivy League it came from. But again, that will have our specific IP ratings. So we created our external, we created our internal. And again, internal, right? Now, cannot communicate with our external drives. It lets the VMs connect or copy, okay, right, to each other and to the host hypervisor. So remember, the host equals the hypervisor. So if we talk about hosts and you hear the word host, it means hypervisor. So kind of don't get that switch because we do equal each, right? And then again, we can't let those VMs talk to the outside world. So I can't leave in, it can only stay inside here. So I can't talk to the outside world, right? I can't talk to our cloud environments. So it blocks that connection for that. So it says nope, right? And it'll say, let me grab my stuff. So it'll, let me add. So, so it won't let us connect to this in and outside world. So it'll block it. Say nope, you can't talk with that doc. I don't want you. Don't come here, come back, and then bounce back to that. So we can play around, or communicate. So we can definitely internally connect as a test to these internal virtual switches, the IDSs, right? So we can connect the cable. So we can change the coloring, right, to that, and then that'll be true. So the only way that'll work is if, hey, I can't connect to the outside world. Okay, fine. So let's connect to our IVS switch, so our internal virtual switch. Now we're going to talk about private switches. So our third diamond here, right? So we have our three diamonds here, one, two, and so our third diamonds, again, they can connect inside the hypervisor, the second, and then the third is our private. So our private virtual switch only lets our VMs connect to each other. Make sense? So we use it in test environments, right? And not the host or the outside world. So we can play around with private virtual switches if we want, but I just show you how to create one. We're not going to use it in this instance. We're just going to create one for this instant, for this video, and we're going to talk about. So let's stop annotating there. So if we go back to, so again, the internal virtual switch cannot communicate with the outside world, and the private virtual switch can be used again, and let's talk to each other when they want. And there's no VLAN IDs. Okay, so in our private switch, there's no VLAN ID. Okay? Why that? Yes. That. So the internal virtual switch, as you can see, it generated so it's able to communicate with each other. We're going to remove this when we're going to be creating our virtual machines, right? But not in this video. We're going to remove it. We also want to create, so we're going to create a new virtual switch. We're going to create a private. So this will create the virtual switch, and then that can be used just by the virtual switch machines that run on the physical computer, right? So let's call this one. Right. Create a residency, right? Nothing, I could even use last if you want. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what you call it what you want. But again, we know that's going to sit in like Boston and New York, Bradford, just for testing purposes. So we're going to. So this one's not going to have a VLAN. So today's date is October 8th, 2024. Right, and we're going to hit apply. So there you have it. I've created my Hyper-V network inside the hypervisor, right? With my virtual switches, right? That's good in my external, should be external. Yes. And I also have my internal and my private. So there you have it, guys. I have my three virtual switches created for you in our today's video. Again, thanks for joining. If you have any questions or comments, please try it on your end. Send me a message, call me, let me know if you have any issues. Uh, questions, again, three virtual switches or external V switch, internal V switch, and our private V switch. Thanks for joining me again. I'm Sal, your systems architect, design and IT professional trainer. Any questions or comments, again, follow me on WhatsApp, join the group. It's brand new, just started. So looking forward to your, don't be shy, send me a message, tell me who you are, what video you watch, and what questions you have. Again, thank you very much and have a great day.